Thank you all for joining us. I'm Scott Montague from Coquitlam Search and Rescue, and I'll be in the engine room running the tech tonight. On your screen, you'll see a question mark button or the questions area of the interface if you're using the web service. Use it to post your questions to any of us, and we'll answer online or in the question and answer part of the presentation. I also heard that if you stick around, there might be a prize giveaway at the end. To get us started, we have none other than the Executive Director of BC AdventureSmart. Please help me welcome the renownable Sandra Riches.
Thank you, Scott. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to have you here tonight and to kick off summer together. It's really the first nice time we've got with weather and we're inside here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm really grateful to be joining you tonight from the Katzie First Nation and just to have our guests join us to kick off summer, to have all of you join us here. I know, we have such great access to waterways throughout British Columbia, and our special guest is really going to set you up for success as we kick off this summer together. This is our first summer series event. We've run them in the past, and we're excited to kick off this summer 2022 as we all start to explore more, get back to those activities, or start new ones. Maybe getting out on the water is new to you this year, and you're starting it off on the right foot or on the right boat, if you will. I've been with the program for 18 years. I'm the executive director, and before this, I was a park ranger for a long time with BC Parks. I'm originally from Ontario, reside now in Whistler and North Vancouver, and really have the pleasure to work with industry professionals like our special guest tonight, providing outdoor education for enthusiasts of all walks of life, levels, interests. So again, we're super excited with our first guest tonight, all the way from my hometown here in North Vancouver, or over there in North Vancouver, from RCM-SAR, which is the Royal Canadian Marine Search and Rescue. Randy Strandt is a station lead in North Vancouver and has been involved in volunteering for 24 years. That's some dedication. That's some really great commitment and passion and time away from family. I know we often talk about ground search and rescue with the BC Search and Rescue Association, so I'm excited to have that water component that we can share with you. The Royal Canadian Marine Search and Rescue is the name for the Canadian Coast Guard Auxiliary Pacific, an all-volunteer organization, just like our GSAR groups, with stations throughout communities in BC. And these volunteers, again, I can't say it enough, they're unpaid professionals. They're leaving friends and family, leaving training nights to be a part of other special events. Thank you, Randy. And the area of operation covers more than 29,000 square kilometers of BC coastline, which is really impressive. And that's accessible for us to paddle and boat and be on and be in. So tonight's not about me. I'm going to pass the baton over to our special guest. And as Scott said, toss your questions into the field, and please stick around to the end and listen closely to Randy's things, because the skill testing question will be about something Randy talks about tonight. And I have an awesome giveaway from Helly Hansen, so stick around till the end. Randy, welcome.
Perfect. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Scott. And I'm just going to do a check that you can see my screen before I jump into it. All right, I'm not hearing the objections.
We most certainly can.
Thanks, Scott. All right, thank you. Again, thank you for the introduction. That was very nice. Sandra, thanks for that little intro. I was going to do a quick brief, but you already covered it, I think, so on who we are, what we do. But I will do a quick recap. So again, Coast Guard Auxiliary for almost 25 years now, called RCM-SAR, 31 stations across the province, 40 years in existence, and again, all volunteer. We have about 1,000 volunteers in the province right now, and doing rescues 24/7, 365. I'll give you a little picture to give you a little sense of what I'm talking about. Hopefully you recognize that map. Most of you will anyways. That's obviously Lower Mainland and the surrounding areas. And if you're a boater, a paddler, or any kind of water user, that's your playground. And if you should be in trouble, you have access to those dots. So the red stations are Coast Guard stations. The yellow ones are RCM-SAR stations around the Lower Mainland, Lower Island, and of course Sunshine Coast. It looks like a lot of resources, and it is. If you're in trouble in Lower BC, that's a good place to be in trouble. Lots of resources. Bear in mind, even those resources are going to be 20, 30, 40 minutes away, depending on where you found yourself in trouble if you do. If you're wondering what we look like, if you've seen a boat on the water, it looks like this. There's some of our vessels that exercised a few years back on the Sunshine Coast. So if you're seeing a yellow boat, red hull, red tubes, that is likely an RCM-SAR vessel, and hopefully you're seeing them just drive by and not come to your assistance. We do give them a wave anyways, they'll come and have a chat with you. So thanks, Scott, for that video at the beginning. I sometimes worry when we talk about SAR prevention and boating safety that we're trying to scare people off. Certainly everyone in RCM-SAR, myself included, we're the opposite. We want you to go there and have fun, enjoy it. We love being on the water. Our crews get that relaxation from being there. So we're really hoping you join us on the water and don't scare you off. My family has this belief that everyone who goes boating or on the water comes back hurt, because that's the stories they hear from me. But I remind them 99.9% of those trips out in the water end very successfully and happily. It's the 0.1, and we're focused on the 0.1 tonight. We want to make sure that 0.1 is nil, that you don't have to call us or ask for help. But again, please go out there, enjoy the water, just do it safely, take a few precautions, and you will not have to see us on the water. And I always say, if you were Walt Disney and you were building a water playground for people on the water, this is what you'd build. You'd build BC, and all those little yellow lines into the inlets and bays and coves. That's 29,000 kilometers that Sandra was mentioning. If you want to build a place to go paddling or boating, that's what you would build. So a great place to recreate. Again, we love it, and we hope you enjoy it as well. It does create some challenges, though. There is 29,000 kilometers of coastline to cover should you get lost or in trouble. So Sandra asked me to share a few stories tonight, and again, to be clear, I'm not trying to scare you or discourage you from going boating. We give you a few ideas of what does happen and can happen, and really kind of encourage you to take some precautions so that maybe it doesn't happen, or if it does, you've been able to mitigate that. And if you see us, you're seeing us on a fun basis, not on red lights and sirens coming to help you out. So we think of SAR prevention is, again, best case scenario, no one comes to your aid. You've taken all the precautions, you boated safely or paddled safely, and you never see us out on the water. Second best for us is, if that can't be the case, you need some help. Something's gone wrong, whether it be taking on water or hurting yourself, but you're prepared. You now mitigated how serious the impact of that issue was because you prepared. Third best is you haven't been prepared, but at least you know how to get help. And again, it truly is the third best. At least you know how to get hold of us and you know where you are and can call for help. And of course, the last one is hopefully no one finds itself in this case is you're actually unprepared and you don't know how to get help. And we're hoping no one's in that case. Hopefully you're in the cases above that. So I did a little research leading up to this last week or so, trying to get a sense across the province, what are the leading causes? There's lots of causes of us being called out, but these are the leading ones. And I actually broke it up because I found that the boaters and the paddlers tend to have, not always, but different leading causes. And so I'll go to the bottom first. The boats, it's broken down. They had bad maintenance or got fuel, or they're disabled. So they've actually hit something and disabled the vessel, or they're grounded. That's kind of our leading causes of vessels, powered vessels, sailing vessels on the water. Our paddlers are a little different. It's often weather or current related, and I'll show you some examples of that in a bit here, or illness and injury. And things happen when you're on the water, people get hurt, and they need your help because of that, or unprepared, or impaired. We'll talk about that as well. Tend to be leading causes of people who are self-powering themselves on the water. The good news is, I looked at overall stats, I don't have them in front of me here, there are less incidents overall on the self-paddled or people who aren't sailing or powering their boat. Less issues in general with them, but they still do get in trouble once in a while. I'm going to some examples for you now, and if you're part of this, please apologize for me highlighting it here for you. This was last year an incident we had. If you're familiar with Vancouver, I believe 30 paddleboarders started out going across English Bay. If you know English Bay, I'll jump ahead for you so you can see what I'm talking about. They're heading from the South Shore, kind of Kinston area, across the North Shore to Ambleside in West Vancouver. So nice paddle, beautiful day, a little windy, but generally a nice day, not too rough, and they were going across. The problem is this little inlet right here, First Narrows, if you're aware of it, as the water floods or ebbs, it creates a significant tide up to 4 and 5 knots at some points in the year and day. I don't know how fast you paddle, but I do not paddle 4 or 5 knots if I'm on the water. And they found themselves, as they got close to this edge, north shore, being pushed into the harbor. 2 problems with that: you're not allowed to be in the harbor on a paddle vessel. Only powered vessels can be in here, no sailing either. But also, this narrow is where every cruise ship and every container ship and thousands of pleasure boats transit through. It's the area you don't want to be in any kind of paddled vessel. The Port Authority was called, we were called, police were called, and all went to assist and get them back on their way. No one hurt, no one injured or needing assistance, but had themselves someplace that could have been dangerous for them if there had been a large ship transiting, because they don't stop. They're at that point committed to going through the Narrows, and unlikely they're going to make a stop for paddleboarders or canoes in their way. And that's the current I was talking about. I can't recognize it from this photo, but that is a outrigger canoe, a 6-person outrigger canoe, upside down now, and with, I believe, apologize if I get this wrong, it's an ama, the outside on the outrigger canoe that kind of keeps them from tipping over. Ironically, that boat was in the same place as the last one I showed you. They experienced crew, I think all 10 years plus, lots of experience on this outrigger canoe. They had paddled themselves into an area that they should have been fine because the boat's meant to be in rough water. But again, they were under first Narrows, and some really big standing waves, 4 or 5 foot standing waves, and managed to actually break the Alma in half and actually capsize themselves and all be into the water. I'm gonna skip ahead just so you can see again the picture or the chart. They found themselves in the water somewhere in the middle, just west of Lions Gate Bridge. We were there within 20 minutes, and when we got there, I use my pointer here, bear with me here. They were out here somewhere. They'd gone almost 2 miles in the time it took us to respond. They were very cold, hypothermic, and having trouble holding on to what was left of the canoe at that point. Again, these are prepared, well practiced canoeists, and they found themselves in trouble in that water after 20 minutes. And that's where they went. This is probably not a very good graphic for you, but this is something I picked up the last night. This is the tide table or chart, current table for Lions Gate First Narrows. And you probably can't see it, but this was last September. Again, many times it's 4, 4.3 flood or ebb tides. That's significantly fast-moving water. As I said, these people moved almost 2 miles in 20 minutes, which is a very fast speed to be moving and to be trying to paddle in. Illnesses, injuries, that was the other one on my list, on my second on my list. Probably a little unpreventable, although hopefully you walk safely, you don't trip, you don't fall, but we all do. At some point, these issues come up, and or medical issues, or bee stings, which has happened to me, people who had anaphylactic shock, and or dog bites. Again, hopefully these things are preventable and they don't happen to you. With this one, we're hoping you prepare. So if you're gonna have an illness or an injury, the key with that is being prepared. So again, in fact, have the right gear with you, right way to communicate, and the right way to call for help should one of these things happen to you. I did have an example for you, an unfortunate story. This is again close to home for me. These are all calls I was on or involved with. If you can't tell, this is Deep Cove, again, just on the east side of North Vancouver. And right across is a little place called Jug Island. Beautiful paddle, very short, nice paddle, easy across. And there's a little beach. I'll show you that here in a sec. Here's the island, a nice little beach here you can pull your kayak or canoe up onto and have a sandwich or a beverage. This young couple, their first date, she paddled across, and they thought they were going to Jug Island. They pulled their kayaks up onto Jug Island, and they had their lunch, and they decided they were going to climb this little rock wall, not a very high rock wall, maybe 10 feet high, but they did it in their sandals. The lady of this group ended up falling down that rock wall and severely breaking her ankle. Significant pain. We arrived on scene, actually took her off the rock with our lifting device onto the vessel and took her back and her companion back to Deep Cove. Again, so maybe unpreventable, although maybe you don't climb rock walls in your sandals. But again, accidents are going to happen. And the key with that one was they were able to call for help quite quickly. They knew exactly where they were, and we were able to find them very easily. So despite being in some pain and unfortunate circumstance, they got help pretty quickly and got the medical aid in a fairly quick order. And this one's unprepared. Not impaired, but unprepared in this instance. This is a gentleman who was fishing, and he was not more than 100 meters from the shore. And if you know Barnett Marine Park in Burnaby, you get close to North Van, and this little boat, he had a PFD on board, but during his fishing with you can see the crab basket on the back of the boat there, he managed to go for the side of the boat, and actually had to wrap the crab trap around his ankle. So he had rope around his ankle, as well as wearing hip waders that all filled up with water. His PFD was not going to keep him afloat, so he was holding on to the side of this little dinghy for dear life for about 20 minutes again before we got there, and not 100 meters from shore. He felt like he almost could have walked to shore if he was just a little bit closer, and he had not a lot of time left before we arrived on scene and able to pull him out of the water to safety. So again, this one, I was cautioned, PFDs for sure, have PFD on board, but they float 15, 20, 25 pounds at most. If you have 15 pounds on you, you're back to neutral buoyancy again. But bear in mind, when you're wearing a life jacket or PFD, the more weight you have, less effective that PFD is going to be to keep you afloat. And this one's the impaired. And again, you can see from the old time dates at the bottom there, this one's a fair number of years ago. However, not actually all that uncommon for us to have vessels that hit things at high speeds often, and then sometimes due to impairment. So that was the most unfortunate. It's certainly preventable. So like driving impaired, boating impaired, canoeing impaired, paddling impaired, not a good choice. So strongly suggest someone on the vessel not partake and drive the boat or whatever vessel you're on safely. This was going to be a question for you. I did this actually presentation in a group before, but the question I had was, what does every boat need to operate? And the answers come back to me. It's fuel, it's an engine, it's power, it's wind, an operator. But there's something more keen that you need than all those things, and it's water. Boats don't work very well without it. This is an example you can see on screen, and this is again North Van, Maplewood Flats, and it's probably at least 4 times a summer, if not more, we find a vessel just like that in shallow water. This is clearly marked shallow water, charts and lights market, but people aren't aware, and they find themselves what looks like water, because you can see water under that boat. It's just not very much water, and certainly not enough to float that boat. So again, being aware of where you are and where there is water and where there's not water, and that can be rocks and ledges and reefs, and in this case, quite a sandy beach that they were found themselves on. And if you're not a boater, maybe this won't seem all that clear to you, but if you're looking at the bottom of a boat, if you look on the right side of that picture, there's a propeller attached to a drive mechanism. On the left side of the boat, closer to us, there's supposed to be another one, and it is missing the other one. They hit a rock at some speed and ripped that piece off their vessel. And the problem with that is not only have they lost power on that side of the vessel, but that is now a hole into the boat, which water is able to get you. So this boat was taking on water and sinking. And thankfully, crew was able to get there fairly quickly, put a pump on board, and save that boat and drag them to a place where they could lift out of the water before the boat sank. But again, that is what happens when you find yourself in shallow water or places with rocks or reefs. So again, for me, navigation is super important. Take a boating course. Local knowledge is, of course, the best. So if you know where you are, you've been there lots of times, that's great to have. Charts are really important to have, and knowing, again, where the rocks and the shallow areas are, and knowing where lights meet to stay on the right side of them. Again, this little example, and I think we all know if you stay in the middle, you're fine. White water's good. But perhaps when you get close to shore, people aren't thinking about what might be close to shore. Apologies, go back there. In here, there's rocks and ledges and reefs, and when you get in there, you need to be able to read the charts to know what's in there. So speaking of navigation, talk about night navigation, and this was meant to be a bit of a quiz, a different presentation, but the question I asked, if you're looking at this, hopefully you can see something on that screen, and I asked, what do you see? I'm guessing you're going to see what I see is perhaps North Shore Mountains in the background, a little foggy, a little hazy, all the city lights on the North Shore in West Van there, and lots of little speckled lights. Those are vessel lights, and if I asked you to navigate through there right now, I wonder how comfortable you might be seeing all those lights. And make it a little bit lighter. This is again a fake image, but I've made up little boats for you. If it was daylight, it might look like this. Those same boats, those same lights. Now you get a picture of what you're looking at. Pay attention to this one right in the middle here, because that one's a concern to me. If it was really clear and you knew it was, that's what you would see. Again, that, if you're a boater, should mean something to you. It's a hazard to you, and if you're not aware it's a hazard, that's a problem. I'll show you what happens if you don't know. And this is a bit of a sad story for sure. This is, again, fireworks coming up very soon, so kind of relevant for me. Again, we're almost coming up in 23 years, I think, on this incident, August 7th. Bayliner was in West Vancouver. They'd filled up, picked up some new passengers on their vessel, and they were coming from West Van into English Bay and, of course, into the harbor to watch fireworks, the celebration of light fireworks. And in their trip, and I'll jump ahead, they saw those same lights. And they also saw what they described as a boat, which is at the front here, and at the back they just described themselves seeing a little island in the middle of English Harbor, or English Bay, sorry. If you're a boater, you know there's no island in the middle of English Bay. They were not local boaters. They did not realize there's no island there. And they drove between this tugboat they saw and this island they saw. They drove in the middle of the two of them. And of course, what they actually were driving between was this tugboat and this island. And joining those two, of course, is a cable. They snagged on that cable as they came across it, which brought them to a very quick stop. Didn't do a lot of damage to the vessel at that point, but unfortunately this barge was being towed and it kept moving, and quickly got to them, who were now snagged on this line, and rolled them over. So that night we lost 5 people, entirely due to local knowledge and navigational errors, not knowing that that was a hazard that would be in their way as they transit to the fireworks that night. So again, local knowledge is key, navigation and charting and boat training is really key, especially for night navigation, but even daytime is key. This is probably the most annoying for us and probably annoying for everyone who's involved in any kind of search and rescue. Entirely preventable, it's maintenance. People don't look after their boats, don't fix their boats, don't put plugs in the boat so it takes on water, and it's entirely preventable. These ones are usually, again, just not maintaining the vessel or the boat they're using, and probably the most annoying for us because they get in trouble just with lack of effort. And that is actually a broken down boat. I think another fireworks night, to be honest, and they needed help because this is, again, they're in a shipping lane, and at this point they're just broken down, but soon they're going to be a target or a bump in the road for a cruise ship or a container ship. Okay, so on to prevention. So I think I mentioned this earlier, but I want to reiterate this, important to me. Hopefully all the prep you do, all the training you do, gets you in a place where you never ever call for help. That's the best case scenario. But occasionally, things are going to go wrong, you're going to trip, you're going to fall, and something's going to go wrong. So our next best is to mitigate. Mitigate. And the goal with that for me is take your emergency down to a problem. It's annoying, it bugs you, but you're not an emergency. Or your problem becomes a small issue for you. And hopefully your issue becomes a nuisance. And the goal with all these is to take your issue, make it less severe. Key with all this, be prepared to look after your stuff. And I showed you the map earlier of all those stations. They're going to come help you, all able to come help you. But in the best case scenario, they are 20 minutes away. It could be as much as 40 to 45 minutes or an hour away, depending on where you are. So unlike when you fall down, hurt yourself at home or at work, and the ambulance is going to be there in 5 or 10 minutes, no one's going to be that quick to help you. So like their friends at GroundSAR, ask you to be able to look after yourself for a little while you wait for help. Okay, a couple key things that will make that happen. So I mentioned earlier, a boating course, a paddling course, take some training to know how to use your vessel, your boat, your paddleboard, so you can do it safely. Know navigation rules, know what they are. Lights, especially if you're gonna do this at night, know your lights, know what they mean. Charts, know how to read them, know where the dangers are. And again, maintain the boat and put fuel in it, and have a designated driver. Please don't drive or paddle under the influence. And on to our friends at AdventureSmart, who I love because they have the best website, the best information. Please, please, please. I'll come back to this later. Go to the website, look what you should do. But a couple key things I'm going to focus in on. So plan, right? Have a plan, and make sure someone knows what your plan is besides you. Know where you're going, when you're going to be back, and description of who you are, what you're wearing, what kind of canoe you're on, or what kayak you're driving, or what boat you're on, and where you should go to, and how you get there, and how you get back. So if you don't return, for whatever reason, you've broken down or hurt yourself, someone's going to respond and look for you. So I can't stress that enough. Make sure someone knows, and the AdventureSmart has a great app where you can fill out a trip plan on there. I would say if that doesn't work for you, put a sticky note on your counter at home, let someone know, or send a text if that's easier for you, let someone know where you've gone and when you expect to be back. Check the weather. I mentioned earlier the tides and the weather. That's another big problem. People go out on a beautiful sunny day, and we know it's Vancouver. It starts out sunny and quickly it's into windy and rain. So check the weather so that doesn't become a problem for you. Take the essentials. I'll come back to what those look like here in a moment. So there's a long list. Again, the AdventureSmart site has a great list of things you should have on you. I'm going to reiterate some of them that are really, really important to me and for us. And PFD, number one, always number one. Don't go in the water, near the water without a PFD, and one for each person. Don't have a boat with 8 people and 6 PFDs. Or children on the boat with adult PFDs. Have a PFD for everyone on the vessel, the right size for them, preferably wearing them. If not wearing them, please have them with you at least. Some way of signaling. Have a light, have a flare. Some way, if you do get in trouble, you can actually call someone for help. A whistle is great because someone can actually hear you, especially from the water. If you're in the water and it's only your head above the surface, very hard to find you. A whistle will make us find you a little bit easier for sure. If you're in any kind of boat, a way of bailing it. If it does get a hole in it or take on some water from a wave, have a bailing device to get the water back out of the boat. Keeping line, reboarding device. This is more on the powerboat side, but a way to get back on your boat. If you should fall out of the boat, could you get back into it? So kind of ladder or some way to get back into the boat. Or powerboats and anchor. If you break down, you don't want to drift onto the rocks or in the path of a cruise ship. So find a way to anchor your vessel so you don't get into bigger trouble. And again, fire extinguisher, first aid kits, and radio if you can, even a portable radio. Probably the best way to get a hold of help is a radio for sure. As you know, cell phones are great and have waterproof cases now. They don't tend to float very well, and more importantly, they don't work everywhere. So you're not going to get reception everywhere you might hope with a cell phone. And then other things, again, if you're doing camping or longer trips or something you're thinking you might need this, get fire making, get some spare food and water, of course, spare clothing if you get wet, a knife, and then of course, just little things like sun protection, bug spray, footwear. All that is going to make your a little easier for you if something does go wrong for you there longer than you plan to be. It's important. So this everything's gone wrong. Again, all the messages before have not worked, and you need help, and you're calling for us to come get you or assist you. So again, before you do anything else, before you start bailing, before you start paddling or trying to get back in the boat, call for help. And the preferable way for that is VHF channel 16. Call Coast Guard radio and ask for help. I'll tell you why in a sec, because if you delay that, things get worse fairly quickly. Your batteries die or you lose your radio. Now you can't get help. So always for us is get help immediately, have us on the way. If it turns out it wasn't that serious and you realize, you know what, it actually wasn't a fire, it was just some steam, very easy to turn us down and say, hey, sorry, it was a mistake, I'm okay. But if it actually is a fire and that fire burns through the wires that supply power to your radio, now you're in trouble. So always call for help first. The way to do that again is channel 16 to Coast Guard radio, or if you have a cell phone, it's just Joint Rescue Coordination Center, number on the screen there, or pound 727 will connect you straight to them, and they'll dispatch us, Coast Guard resources, or anyone in the area for that matter, who can come assist you. So please have those numbers handy. Again, channel 16, and of course these phone numbers. If you can't remember those, 911 will work. They will reroute the phone call to this number if you can't remember that number, or put your phone. And then how do you call for help? So you've all seen, I'm sure, TV where they call Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. That's a real thing. If your life is, or someone else's life is in immediate danger, it is a Mayday call. That means I need help right now. Please come, drop everything else and come help us. Pan is I need help, but it's not right now. I'm not gonna. No one's dying. No one's crashing to the shore. But if we're left unattended, it will become a problem very soon for us. You still need help. It's just not urgent right now, but someone's still going to come help you. After that, boat name or description of your vessel, if it's a kayak. Most importantly, where you are, so know where you are. We love being search and rescue, but the search could be harder if you don't tell us where you are. Number of people, how many people are on board, and the nature of the problem. Someone's hurt, they're sick, the boat's on fire, what you need, what kind of help you need to come help you. And then after all that, take action. So again, if the boat's burning, don't let it burn. Hopefully you put the fire out. Or your boat's leaking, stop the leak. And if need to, prepare to leave the boat. Take with you flotation, of course, your PFD, signaling device, and communications, a way to actually call for help or reconnect to help if you have to leave the canoe, the kayak, or the boat if you're leaving it. But stay close to it. Rarely do boats sink. Boats we come to 10, they usually, as I showed you earlier, they wallow. They're kind of just below the waves or just on top of the waves. They actually don't sink. They sit there and they float for hours, if not days sometimes. You want to hold on to that. Whatever's left of it, if you can get on top of it, even better. If it's overturned, get out of the water if you can. But regardless, if you can't, stay with it, because it's easier for me to find an overturned canoe than just to find you. It's a much bigger target, easier for us to find. So stay, if you possibly can, with whatever vessel you were on when you left the vessel. All right, a little bit of a plug for RCM-SAR. I know, sorry, done sounded very well, but just again, who we are, what we do. Again, I mentioned earlier, we're all volunteers, 500 plus calls a year. Response time, we're within 15 minutes of the boat. So everyone has to respond and be at the boat within 15 minutes. So live, work, or play in that circle around the boat, because we are departing in 15 minutes or less. I mentioned earlier the JRCC. So if we're being dispatched for a marine incident, anyone in the water needing help in a boat or kayak, that's RCC. If it's on land, helping our friends in the Ground Star who were on earlier, that's EMBC, who will task us to help people who are land-based trouble. And the crew, of course, they're all on a page-out system. Yeah, I showed you a big wide picture before. If you see that vessel or anything like it, that will be your local volunteer RCM-SAR crew. That happens to be my vessel out of North Vancouver. Or it looks like this, typical rib, and Coast uses very similar vessels. Only differences are yellow on top. But again, similar rib type vessels you'll see. And just a little bit about what we do and how we do it. So training. So again, in the title of our organization is Search. We have to focus on rescue a lot. That's the more fun part, the more probably sexy part. But in reality, we spend far more time, first of all, training on and actually doing the search part. It's less exciting than the rescue part, but to actually find someone is the hard part of the job. Once I've found you, it's a little easier to get you out of the water and treat you and get you back to safety. So a lot of our training, a lot of effort goes to that search piece. And so it's navigation, communication, search patterns. Unlike 911, when you call your home address and know exactly where you are, we don't get that benefit in the search response. And if you're a technology person, you might enjoy this. We have still, I think, the first, but certainly it was the first of time, small vessel simulator in North America. So our crews use this, but also RCMP, police, fire crews, as well as Navy people use our simulator to simulate the worst case scenario. So again, today it's beautiful in the water. Look at the window here. Sunny day, calm waters. Most of us can boat safely in that circumstance. When it's not so easy, not so safe, it's when it's stormy and there's fog, you can't see the front of the boat, and it's snowing at the same time, and there's someone calling for help, and there's a child calling for help, and your adrenaline races. Can you still navigate safely to that incident in those conditions? And this simulator actually mimics that for us. So you start out on a sunny day, navigating in the nicest conditions. By the end of the course, you're navigating that with no visibility. You can't see the front of the boat, and you're still safely navigating to the rescue and back to the rescue safely. That is based in Souk, as I said, Victoria. So I've gone fairly quickly, but I do want to put a plug in, and thank you, Sandra. I do love AdventureSmart. They, again, first have great safety messages and materials. They also kind of talk about go have fun, go enjoy yourself in the wilderness or in the water. Just take a few steps to be safe and take some precautions. And if you do those things, you won't see us or our friends in the Ground Star. I am done in 30 minutes. I'm hoping there's some questions. So.
30 minutes or it's free, I think. Good evening. I do actually have some questions queued up here for you.
Sure.
I will start off with a softball here. Someone wanted to know the definition of ebb. You talked about ebbing.
Oh, thank you. And I try hard because we all have this lingo and jargon and acronyms, so I try to avoid those. But yeah, thank you. So tide comes up, water comes into the harbor, so it's flooding. I think like a flood, your tub flooding, it's a flood tide. The opposite, it ebbs. So as the tide goes down, water all leaves the harbor, and you get an ebb tide. So yeah, your flood water coming up and flowing in, ebb tide, water leaving and ebbing.
Makes sense. Another one question for you. Someone was wondering, of course, obviously we need a license to drive a car. I don't need a license to bike or to hike. Is there a license that you need for like different sizes of boats, or do you need it for all boats? And if so, can you tell us more about like how you would get a license? Randy, I can't hear you right now. Forgive me. Randy, can you hear me? Randy.
Randy, we're trying to get your attention. We can't hear you. Can you see us and hear us?
Randy has disappeared. Well, Sandra, I have a question for you while we're briefly talking about this. So this is the summer series that's coming up, and we have other presentations that are coming. Can you give us a headlight while I'm trying to grab Randy's attention to see what might else be coming up in for the rest of the summer?
Absolutely, yeah. This is just our first one, but we've got some others coming up in the queue. And we've done these last winter, last summer, but this year we're taking a different approach. The 45-minute approach is just to really capture you, not take up too much of your evening. We've got the BC Search and Rescue Dog Association coming up a week today. That's going to be fun. If you haven't checked out even just our poster for it, go check it out. It's a rescue dog named Rory. He's got some character, let me tell you. He's got some great glasses on, kind of like mine tonight, actually, some goggles. So that should be fun. We're going to talk to the president of the BC Search and Rescue Association, BC Search and Rescue Dog Association. We also have Pep Air joining us, pilot Fred Carey, who's with Provincial Emergency Program Air. We also have Coquitlam Search and Rescue, one of your volunteers, Scott. Her name is Wendy. Wendy Harder's been with Coquitlam Search and Rescue for 19 years, and she has a wealth of information to share. And Coquitlam-SAR is actually celebrating the 50th anniversary for their SAR group this year. It's so impressive all on its own. So I'm grateful to have someone who can join us from there. We also are going to have Mountain Equipment Company joining us talking about gear. We always talk about gear, but we want to hear from their end of the story and see how they can talk about the finer details of what these pieces of gear that we always suggest that you should have to hike or paddle or boat, and they're going to come on in a couple of weeks too and share with us. We're trying to also get the Weather Network to come on to talk about that finer detail of weather checking before you head out there. So those are just a few, and maybe I'll check back with Scott and Randy to see if we have sound and can move on.
I think I'm back, but I'm going to check.
Welcome back, Randy. So we were just hearing, Sandra was telling us about what else is coming up in the summer series, and I'm really excited about some of those. But I did want to hear the answer to your question. We didn't hear any of the answer about licensing.
My apologies. Yeah, sorry. So license is required for pleasure craft. It's a pleasure craft operator certificate, or PCOC. That's going to apply to any powered vessel, sail vessel. Doesn't apply to canoes, kayaks, self-powered vessels. But my message of that is, please, just because you're on a canoe or kayak or a paddleboard, please be aware of the same rules. Be aware of the lights and the rules of the road. But yeah, not required licensing for self-powered vessels, but is required for boats.
Marvelous. And do you know how much they cost by chance?
I don't know, but I can give you a discount. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. It's been 25 years since I got mine. But I believe they're really expensive actually online, and maybe as low as $20. It's a fairly easy test.
How often do you renew it?
It's good for life.
Wow. Okay, yeah. That sounds like a deal.
It is a deal. Yeah. So again, doesn't teach you everything you need to know about boating. I would still strongly suggest you take a boating course on top of that. Lots of good courses out there. So if you're going to be a real serious boater or canoers, take some courses. Be aware, but the minimum is the license for sure.
Marvelous. And that involves an exam, you said, right?
There is an exam, and actually it's actually online now.
Okay, so that's cool. So if you do go take your boating course, you're probably well prepared for that exam.
Yeah, so any of the boating courses will make you certainly able to take that exam, but far more prepared than is required.
Marvelous. I know 911 is available 24/7 and anywhere that I can get a phone line, which is not everywhere, obviously. VHF channel 16, it monitored 24/7? Is it available everywhere? Like, cause there are people who go out into the middle of gosh darn nowhere.
Um, I won't profess that it works in the middle of the ocean, but anywhere in coastal waters, certainly in Canada, and I think anywhere in the world, but certainly anywhere in BC, any nook and cranny that you can find yourself in a boat, Channel 16 will be able to reach you. And yes, they are available 24/7. That is Coast Guard Radio, 2 in BC, Victoria Coast Guard Radio, or Prince Rupert Coast Guard Radio, and they are on all the time, monitoring 24/7, 16. So if you are using radio, don't be chatting on 16. That is meant to be a hailing frequency only. And they get quite upset with you if you start chatting on it. That is meant to be only for calling for distress or communicating to someone you are in distress. And I encourage you, if you are in the water and you have radio, turn 16 on, because sometimes you're the one who's going to be the helper. So if you hear a call for help and you're quite close, quite nice if you go and lend assistance while you wait for the Coast Guard or RCMSAR to show up.
Marvelous. Now, I think I heard a key word there, coastal BC. So now I'm thinking if I'm inland and I'm on a lake or on a river, that's not an option for me, right?
That is correct. Thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, inland waterways is not covered. So navigable waters are. So Fraser River, yes, up to a certain point, but beyond that, no. So yeah, if you are inland, lake, river, that is not Coast Guard radio, and that is not Channel 16 HF. That is your 911 call to someone else, but not
other methods of communication like satellite spot, locator beacons, anything else that you might recommend someone have on hand?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for mentioning. I didn't have it in my presentation. So certainly have all the same ones our friends in GroundSAR have. So the satellite phone, of course. For us, EPIRB is really probably the best for sure. So EPIRB is a device that either self-deploys if you sink, or you take with you if you leave the vessel. Again, satellite detection. So it's like airplanes, black box airplanes, so you can find it. So if you go in the water with EPIRB, someone's going to find you. It's going to send a signal to satellites, and it's going to pinpoint within 3 feet where you are and send us to your location. So EPIRB is probably the best, but certainly spots work as well. And of course, a satellite phone if you can so afford one.
Perfect. Sandra, are you still around?
I am. My finger wasn't fast enough and you were quick there. Thank you. Awesome.
Marvelous.
Look at us. We've come right up to our time here, but I wanted to ask the audience if they could play a little poll question with us. And I was curious to see if you could tell us, Scott, if you don't mind pulling up the poll, how many missions RCMSAR have had already in 2021? We've got 213 here, 396, 515, or 1,212. Great bunch of numbers there.
That's during the entire duration of 2021. It's 2022 now. So these are stats for all of 2021.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah, calendar year, January to December. Yeah. So, Randy gave us some awesome information tonight and so many details of preparation, and a lot of it aligns and has such great synergies with what we talk about all the time at BC AdventureSmart. So I think there's lots of complementary information from water to land for enthusiasts in general, right? And I'll mirror what Randy said, and that is, I hope you never see Randy ever. He's a great guy. You've met him tonight. He's awesome. Sure, the rest of his crew are as well. Let's hope you never ever meet them. That's the plan, and that's what they hope for too, respectfully, of course. And then once we get the answer to that, we'll be able to see that on the screen. And it's always interesting. We work so much with stats, and so does Randy. There we go. Look at that. We've got 0 at guessed at 213, 396 was 40, and 20 and 40. Randy, what was the correct answer?
So we had 515 calls last year. I think our record year was over 800, but last year a little bit less with COVID, people a little bit less time on the water with their boats. But yeah, 515 last year.
Wow, that's incredible. Busy on all fronts, no question. Well, it's just always nice to engage with our audience. We really appreciate you, but don't go away just yet. I have a skill testing question for you. You heard the answer to my question, and if you can remember it, get your fingers ready. You get to type in the answer. The first person with the correct answer to this question will win an awesome backpack from Helly Hansen It's their lightweight transistor pack. It's a 30 liter. It's awesome. It's a gorgeous red. There's red or green. I forget which one I've got in the warehouse, but you'll get one of them if you can answer this correctly. The first person to tell me how many kilometers along the BC coastline does RCM-SAR cover? I think Randy mentioned it twice.
I know.
You know, good for you. There you go. And we actually already have an
prizes
answer.
for you.
We have an answer. Oh.
Okay.
Well,
Awesome.
I'm going to give just in case that answer is wrong, I'll give people another chance to put in their answers, because if that's wrong, then we'll go to the first right answer.
Randy can tell us the right answer, but I did note it down in my notes as well.
Oh, okay. Well, we've got two, and they both agree. So and there were some more. Okie dokie. I think we've probably anyone who wanted to answer was going to answer. So let's take Randy and let us know what the correct answer is there.
Yeah, so it's 29,000 kilometers, and that is probably rounded to the nearest 1,000 kilometers, but yeah, 29,000.
Congratulations, Ray. Stay on the line. I'm going to be reaching out to you.
And just note,
Beautiful.
I think the entire United States has 20,000 kilometers. So continental United States has 20,000 on both coasts, and BC has 29,000. To give you a context of how different we are. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. All
Okay,
those
that's pretty
islands
exciting.
and inlets make for lots of coastline. That isn't the norm everywhere.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, thank you, Randy. Thank you, Scott, for the tech support in the back end. They're really important. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Hopefully this sets you off on the right path, waterway. Randy has set you up for success, there's no question. Check us out for a few more of these events coming through. Lost person behavior was the next one that I wanted to mention to you as well. That's coming up in the next few weeks. Really, really interesting from Dr. Kester about lost person behavior. Exciting. You know where to find us. Facebook is where you can register for these events. If you have any questions about tonight, send us an email at info@adventuresmartbc.ca or DM us on any of our socials. Have a great summer, and thanks for getting prepared before you head out there. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, folks.